Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance and money management.
All right, folks, welcome back to what is the final episode of the Summer Series podcast here on the Property Couch. Ben, what a massive summer it was.
It's been so much fun. I mean, so many takeaways, mate. I'm just so, I'm inspired by these people who take action. They really do. They're making a difference for themselves. They're making a difference for their family, and hopefully for our community, they're just giving them that little bit of confidence to actually move forward. And so I'm super proud of the way in which these people basically put themselves in front of the community and show up and share their story to help others. Really important that's why they're coming on to help others.
They're good humans, aren't they? Because they're vulnerably telling their story for the benefit of whoever's listening to these things to actually get some results. So they are super awesome humans for everyone that's been on our summer and winter series. But obviously we've had a big summer. But today's conversation was wide and varied and has got an amazing array of takeaways. So I reckon we should just cut to it now. Let the community have a little listen, and then we'll circle back at the end. So let's cut to the conversation we had with Steve. All right, Ben, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast and another episode of the Summer Series. Ben, I'm excited about our guest today. We are chatting with Steve Alcock. First of all, welcome to the Property Couch, Steve.
Thanks, guys. Great to be here and having the opportunity to sit down and have a chat.
Well, thanks for coming on and chatting with us. Ben and I always get excited at this point because the anticipation around knowing what we can find out about your story is exciting for us because we never quite know where the gold is going to live, but at some point throughout this conversation we're going to have with you, there will be some lessons that our community can benefit from. But if we help our community get to know you, let's go back to the beginning, Steve. We'd love to know what the early foundational messages around money were for you. Was it something that was spoken about over the kitchen table when you were growing up, or was it a taboo topic, or somewhere in between?
I figure it's somewhere in between. So in terms of discussing it around the table, it didn't really occur. So financial situation of the parents was their business. The kids weren't involved in that. So there was never really any general discussion around how the money was spent, how it was earned, and all that kind of stuff. Conversely, though, we were educated in saving for our own things and being responsible for sort of managing our own money. So if there was a certain toy or a camp for school or something, the parents encouraged that saving and working towards it and trying to get some of that money to help out in that expense.
Now, Steve, in terms of, can we paint a bigger picture? How many brothers and sisters, whereabouts did you grow up? Sort of paint a picture about the location and the demographics. That sort of helps us to sort of get a positioning point.
Yep. So I only have one sister, so a bit of a traditional family. Two parents, two kids. And we grew up in the northern suburbs of Melbourne, so out the Laylaw, Epping type area. And
my stomping ground.
Yeah, not far from the old Greensborough Bundoora area.
From Bundoora, Diamond Valley Footy League. Yep, know it well.
Yeah, that's the one. So had a few years playing footy and the like down around Laylaw, we were sort of around that area until probably my early teens, and then we relocated to regional Victoria. So just in between sort of that Ballarat Bacchus Marsh area.
Beautiful.
And then changed lifestyle a little bit and then grew up there.
So you've got this family nucleus. You're getting some lessons, as you were saying before. The potential home, broader finances aren't being discussed on a regular basis, but you're getting taught the value of money. Did you set up your own bank accounts at an early age? Did you, were you doing some part-time work to help, build out that cash flow and those savings?
So you had own bank accounts, and of course, most kids had the old dollar saver with school and things like that. So, that was contributing to it. And then I had a part-time job from about the age of sort of 14, working with my uncle in a glass shop. So on a Saturday morning, and just sort of doing a bit of general tidy up, cleaning, emptying bins and the like for a few hours on a Saturday, which gave me a little bit of extra pocket money. So some of that went towards the saving for the bigger toys as I got older, and some went to spending and having a bit of fun during the week.
Steve, what was some of the messaging that you had as a kid that you had to see via osmosis? I also grew up in a family where my dad used to say kids should be seen and not heard, and we never had any conversations around money. But the overwhelming sense I got it growing up was not too dissimilar to you. You need to be a good saver, you got to work hard. But I never saw any stress in the household. Our bills were always met, and it was just hidden to me. I never saw any stress around not hitting them. What did you observe then growing up? If the conversations weren't explicit, what were you seeing, and what were your takeaways from growing up in that environment?
Yep, very similar. So Dad was always hardworking. He'd be up and sort of leave at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and wouldn't get home till 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. And so he was a motor mechanic. So big long days working in that industry, and then Mum was stay at home while we were younger, and then as we got older, then Mum started working, and then we contributed more around the house. So, but yeah, there was never any stress in regards to money management. Like I said, it wasn't discussed, but at the same time, there was never any indication of financial stress or ends not meeting, and certainly there were no cutbacks in our way of life or in our normal things that we would do that would indicate any of those stresses. So it just generally, though, wasn't talked about.
So you had this job as a 14-year-old part-time. So did you just saved it? You put it in a bank account? You put it in a piggy bank? You talked about the banking dollar saver. How did you then develop your budgeting habits as you go through your teenage years and then into your first adult job?
Yep. So it was a little bit interesting, sort of evolved over time. So initially it was, I'd go to work and get the $30 for the few hours I'd work on a Saturday morning and bring it home. And then, 20 of that would go into the bank on the Monday after school. I'd walk up to the bank and put that in, and then keep the other 10 for myself. I mean, there wasn't a lot of spending in a small country town, and it wasn't like I could jump in the car and drive to the bigger towns at age 14. So it sort of just went along like that for a while. And then it was probably a couple of years later, as part of a school project, we did a full budget analysis and how would you live, which included, picking the job that you wanted to do, what was the salary associated with that. And then we had to do a full budget, including a house. Were we buying? Were we renting? Did we have a car? And did we purchase that car on finance? And what were the repayments and everything? So we worked through the interest calculations and basically did a full yearly budget to see whether the occupation we picked would actually finance the lifestyle that we wanted based on all of that. And that was sort of a bit of a light bulb moment for me in starting to plan for the future and what it was going to look like once I left school, what I wanted to do. And then it sort of evolved from there then. And while the saving habits didn't change too much, it's sort of that future planning as to career aspirations and that pathway started to develop. And then it was a bit later on, a few years later, sort of changed slightly with the recession we had to have, back in the 90s there. So that plan sort of changed a bit. Instead of, doing a university degree, I ended up becoming an apprentice and that sort of changed. But the long-term goal eventuated, which I'm really happy about.
Hey, Steve, we've got to find out which school did that for you, right? There's always the rolling debate on many people that we talk to is about talking about, gee, they need to teach this stuff at school. You either had an excellent maths teacher or you had a good school curriculum that was talking about money management at your age, because that's pretty cool. So whereabouts did you go to school?
I went to Bacchus Marsh. So then it was Bacchus Marsh High School, and it changed to Bacchus Marsh Secondary College in the final years of sort of VCE era. So, but yeah, it was, I think, a bit of a combination. The curriculum was fairly standard, but the teacher that we had was fairly practical in application. Right. And maths is always the kind of subject where you hear, what am I going to use this for when I leave school? So that practical application of putting what we were learning into a dynamic which we could relate to in this is what it's like when you leave school and you're flying solo. It was well worthwhile. And certainly highlighted a lot of factors.
The difference between teaching academia versus teaching practical outcomes. That's that's the definition of a great teacher versus a good teacher, right? So that's a good news story. So when did you leave home, and when did you start finding that independence?
Yeah, so I started an apprenticeship when I was late teens, I was late 16, 17-year-old. Yep. And I left home probably when I was about a third year apprentice, I think. So I was about that 19, sort of just coming up to 20. And I was able to buy a small house in the same town the parents lived in for a tidy sum of about $60,000. So it was back in those days, it was modest. It wasn't over the top, but it certainly wasn't cheap. And being an apprentice, a lot of the hard earned went into that to be able to do it. So together with my partner at the time, who later became my wife, we started out on that joint venture and moved in together into this little house. And the rest is history.
Beautiful.
You talked about the recession we had to have earlier. I also was in high school during that time. What was the takeaway that you saw from that time, based on, again, observation in your family? Did that cause any extra stress that you noticeably picked up, or was it just business as usual?
No, I think we were lucky in the fact that both my parents were working and their jobs were maintained, so there was no sort of stress around there. But for myself, I was noticing just through my normal inquisitive self that the jobs were becoming fewer and fewer, and especially in regional Victoria where we lived, job ads were declining. You weren't hearing of as many people leaving school and getting a job, so sort of that started to play on my mind. And when an opportunity come up for the apprenticeship in the town I was living in, so I could ride my bike to work, because I didn't have a car, too young to drive, I had to really stop and assess where I was going to head and say, well, do I continue on and run the risk of doing a uni degree, coming out of that and still not being able to get a job? Or do I capitalise on an opportunity that's presented itself now and do an apprenticeship and then look at the long-term goal as still being achievable, just in a different format?
What was the sliding door moment? Where was the uni pathway going to take you?
I was actually looking at doing a degree in human movement because I was always a bit of a sports nut and I love sort of all kinds of sports. And so I was really interested in anatomy and human movement and the physics around that. And that's sort of where I was heading. But conversely, I had a really keen interest in woodworking and furniture making and building. So the apprenticeship ended up taking me down that cabinet maker joiner path, which gave me some really valuable skills for later in life when it come to property and renovating and building and the like. So
now, Steve, so you bought your first property with your now future wife at the time. Did you renovate that property, or how long did you stay in that property for?
Yep, so we were there for about 9 years. Yep. And when we bought it, it hadn't been lived in for quite a while and was quite overrun. So the first probably 6 months was more about creating a bit of a clean slate. It was getting rid of a lot of the overgrown plants and everything, actually making the house visible from the road again, and establishing a bit of a front fence and that kind of thing. And then over the journey, those 9 years, we pretty much gutted the whole house and room by room renovated as we were living in it, and then managed to throw in a couple of kids in the mix as well. So when we finished up 9 years later and sold it to move on to something a bit bigger and brighter, we had a couple of kids in tow. So it was interesting times renovating room by room, sort of moving everything out of one room into the next, and swapping from day to day, week to week, and as well as sort of trying to live and cook meals and everything else. So it was quite interesting.
Yeah. I've been in that environment of having a dishwasher on the front veranda next to the sink as we were renovating one of our properties. Hey, how did that net out for you in terms of, so you bought it for around 60? Did it give you a nice little sizable equity return as you cleaned it all up and was next part of the property ladder story for you?
Yeah, so like I said, we're there for the 9 years, and over that time, we sort of just nutted away standard repayments. We actually borrowed against it a couple of times for a couple of the bigger parts of the renovation, and then sort of when we were ready, when thought it was time to move on, we purchased land with the intent to build on that. And so then, putting the house on the market and selling it, then the return we got on that went straight into the next property and gave us a good foundation to sort of build what we thought was going to be the property of our dreams, but ended up not so, and not due to the property or not due to the house or anything else, but just more location and a change of lifestyle as the kids got a bit older. So
now, Steve, you it sounds like the foundations are really strong. You were taught to be a saver. You're a hard worker. You've worked from a young age, and so the description, and then you bought a property at a young age, and you're moving through the life cycle. So it sounds like things are tracking quite nicely. But the description that you gave us in the lead up to us having the chat today was that you live for the moment and only really saved for when we wanted to do something, i.e. going for a trip around the world. So did something happen in the middle there? How did the money management go? Was there just lots of money going on property, or did you start to just spend more and more as your expenses increased with a larger family?
I think it was more around increased expenses with larger families. So like I said, when we got our second property and I went and spoke to a bank manager about it, the bank manager really dictated sort of the terms of the loan and what they were prepared to give us and how and everything else, and didn't really explain the benefits of offset accounts and things like that. So while we moved into a new property, and then we had that sort of honeymoon period where you spend a lot of money on gardens and on getting everything set out the front, and then of course you start out the back, and it was a 5-acre property, so there was a bit of fencing to be done, and then we threw a couple of sheep and alpacas and chooks and the dogs and the cat and everything else in there. So that sort of all built up over time, and was actually quite enjoyable for the time that we were doing it. And but then as the kids got older, they weren't really using the land like we thought they would. So we then started to look at going away and spending more time in like caravan parks and the like. We bought a small caravan, and so the money we had, instead of putting it into a surplus of an offset account to bring that down, we were just sort of living by the moment, as I describe it, and doing weekend trips and spending time with the kids and enjoying life in that regard. So once we sort of established that we had some bigger goals, like we've done a couple of trips around Australia, we did the trip around the world. So those key targets then became driving factors to cut back a little bit on the weekend trips and save a little bit more for those bigger trips. And it sort of evolved over time like that. And that's probably why we didn't have bad money habits. Certainly we didn't have really robust saving habits either. So it was sort of in the middle.
Steve, this is obviously a bit of a story about future pacing and planning to become what you plan to become. So you mentioned in there about the move from the very first property that you bought, renovated, sold, bought that land, got the 5 acres there, but then ultimately, wait a minute, is this the house that we need for the 3 kids? Did you always plan to have 3 children? In terms of it, it sounds like the forward pacing sort of hits about that 2 to 3 year mark, and then anything beyond there hadn't really been considered. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, probably a little bit. We always planned to have 3 kids.
Yep.
So that was sort of from the get-go.
Yep.
But in terms of, that sort of that 3 to 4 year period mark in the property on the acreage, and as the kids got older and we're getting to that, sort of 8, 9 years of age, we found their interest didn't lie in being outside and playing with the animals, or working with the animals or whatever. Yeah. And sort of the location was always windy. It was either too hot, too cold, or too windy for them to be outside. So there was always an excuse to be inside. So in wanting to get out and explore and having the outdoors as part of their life, not being computer generated kids, that's when we looked at exploring the countryside more and doing those weekend trips, which then changed our priorities in life. And then we worked out that maybe this house in this location wasn't what we really wanted or needed, and then that pushed us towards another direction in selling up and actually building again a new house on another block of land, which was residential, a lot smaller, easier to manage, and really catered for our ability to get away and have those weekend trips.
And so you now find yourself in this home. I'm assuming this is hopefully the final, unless we're sort of talking about downsizing. The kids are at a reasonable age now. You're a bit closer to suburbia, a few more activities and weekend things to do. So did the proceeds of the acreage sale allow for the caravan purchase and the round the world trip? Like, was there an equity return that you got from that, or did you have to save your way to those types of results?
So believe it or not, the next house wasn't the final one.
Okay.
But in saying that, yeah, when we did sell the acreage, that did give us the deposit and funds that we needed, a substantial funding for the third house, which was the residential one.
Yeah.
And so we were able to build that and landscape it and move in and really have I suppose in comparison, a minimal debt compared to a lot of other friends and that were doing the same type of thing. So, which left us in a really good spot. So again, going through that phase, when I talked to the bank about the finance and stuff, there was never any mention of an ability to hold on to that property and turn it into an investment or anything else. It was always around the bank trying to capitalize on refinancing and trying to get the money to you. But so yeah, that was in hindsight now, looking back. If I knew then what I know now, I would have approached it in a totally different manner, and we would have been in a position to be able to facilitate that. But not knowing what you don't know, you can't do much about it, and you rely on the advice of experts. Mm-hmm. While the bank manager was looking after the interests of the bank and certainly selling the deal that he was helping us at the same time, looking back at it now, it could have been done a lot differently, which would have changed the outcome, some 15 years down the track. So, but currently, we live just on the outskirts of Ballarat, and we found that we were travelling a fair bit with the kids into Ballarat and home again, which is 40-minute drive each way, and that's what lifestyle was dictating in terms of swimming activities, sporting activities. So we decided to move a little bit closer, still in a country town, but close enough to Ballarat, that major regional centre, that there's no inconvenience now just to duck into town and grab something and get home again. So this house I actually built myself. So I've put those trade skills to use, and spent 12 months in between working and built a house now that for the first time we're actually got no plans to move. We're actually really settled and enjoying what we're doing, which has sort of now led us into looking at more now our retirement phase of life. So now I'm in my 40s and the wife's in her 40s, and retirement is closer now than what it was when I started work. It was time to start the plan and work out what we were going to do moving forward, and just revisit our whole financial situation. And when I did that, obviously there was a better way to do it, but I just didn't know how. So that's when I started to sort of do some research and start listening to podcasts and things like that, just to try and work out what was going to be the best way forward for us heading into the future.
What were some of the approaches that you were exposed to on that early part of your research? Clearly, we're thankful that you've stumbled across our podcast, but were there some early experiences there that as you were trying to make sense of it all, that you stumbled across?
I sort of looked at a couple of different avenues. I could look into shares and stuff like that, but without a real knowledge in financial markets and things like that, for me, that was a high risk activity, and to reduce the risk, it would have meant contracting someone with a specialty in that field, and so you start losing out on return by paying someone to do the work for you, and so I sort of looked at that a little bit and went, it does seem a bit complicated, even though there's that many apps and stuff around now that you can jump on and use to do that kind of thing. It's never really been my cup of tea. So I looked at that. The whole the Bitcoin type scenario again was another thing. It was like, it's virtual money. I couldn't see really how it worked and where the benefit was in it. It was a bit of an odd scenario for me to say, I'm going to buy something that doesn't really exist and hopefully I get a return on it, and then watching over a period of time just how volatile that sort of market was with the highs and lows. Again, my assessment of it was a high risk activity. So I sort of stuck with what I knew, which was property based on my experience in the building industry. And so while I knew houses and building, what I didn't know was the location and returns that you could get for your money. And that's where that research took me down that field. And I've probably tried 2 or 3 different podcasts before I really settled on this one. And mainly because the other ones I listened to from the get-go were targeted high-end terminology. And you were listening to it and it was just like listening to a foreign language. And I tried 2, 3 episodes and go, no, try the next one. And it was the same thing. And then when I stumbled across your one, which was only January this year that I really stumbled across it. And while I was flicking through them and went back to episode 1, like I did with all the others, and it was just listening to 2 blokes have a conversation, and it started at grassroots, and it was easy to follow, easy to listen to. And then sort of as it progressed a little bit and you introduced the Money Smart system into the podcast. And so then I jumped on the internet and had a look at that and seen what that was about, and learned a few things quickly about the banking structure we had set up, because over a period of time, number of different loans with different banks, we had accounts in different institutions. And so just looking at that and going, well, maybe it's time to clean all this up and consolidate everything to one area and simplify it. And from there, it just sort of kept, that snowball just kept on rolling, and things became easier. And as I kept listening, the knowledge grew, and I just kept implementing little bits and pieces over a course of time. And then, sort of 8 months down the track now, we've got an investment property. We're watching what that does now, and things are just totally different. So, that surplus money that we had that we were spending on life in general, we're now putting to good use without actually without penalising ourselves. So we're still doing those fun things. We're still going away on weekends and having that lifestyle. We're just using our surplus cash a little bit more wiser now.
Well, thankfully for you, Steve, we Ben and I don't know any big words, and we've also got him as a handicap because he's a Collingwood supporter. So we've got to really keep this simple, but tongue in cheek, of course. But thank you for those kind words. I guess when you were stumbling across hearing some of this stuff, learning about different asset selections, and then the Money Smarts, what was it, just for someone who's listening to this who's not really in tune with Money Smarts or what it is, what was it that enticed you to swap from what you were currently doing to actually taking on board a system that we're really proud of? We think it's the best in the world, right? But you'd expect us to say that as the creators. But what was it for you that got you to switch over from what you were doing?
Good question. So, I mean, I've always had a budget. Like I said, from those early days when we learned it at school, I've always sort of had a spreadsheet sitting in the background, and which would have sort of all our bills programmed into it. And then at the end of the day, I'd apply a 5% variation to it. So there was always that little bit of surplus against it all. And then I suppose at the end, the bottom line said, this is how much extra you'll have, per month or per week or per year. And then from there, it was like, well, yeah, that's ours to spend. We can just do what we want. And again, not really appreciating or knowing the benefits of that offset account and how it can work for you. We never really capitalized on it and used it. And then once got into the Money Smart system a little bit and seen how that worked and plugged a few figures into it and started to see some of the outcomes in the charts and the sheets that are in there. Started talking to the wife going, there's probably a possibility here we could actually do things a little bit better. And so then we started looking at, like I said, simplifying our banking, bringing it all together into the 3 accounts. So we got, sort of the account for our general spending, and then we've got the surplus account, which is the offset. And then, and of course, the credit card account, which we use for the bills and everything like that. And then, of course, tacked onto the back is the home loan. It just became really easy and simple. That was low maintenance. So, probably the first 2 months, I spent a lot of time in there just looking, couldn't believe really how easy it was. So I kept going in there, making sure I had it right. And, it's like, have I forgotten anything? It just seems too easy. But at the end of the day, no, it really is that easy. Once you plug those figures in, 10 minutes to go in there, have a look. Just update some of the figures in the provisional spending, and seeing where all the balances and checks are lying there, and it's done. And the rest you don't have to worry about. It takes care of itself. So while that was nice and easy, it sort of then showed us that we could actually achieve more than what we were planning to. So it worked well.
Steve, you some of the notes we've got here talk about, obviously you're able to get rid of sort of some personal debt or credit card debt that was just, I suppose, there. You said you had lots of different account structures and so forth. So take us through that tidy up process in terms of how you just organise that and how quickly you were able to get rid of that credit card debt that really was just sitting there. Were you auto sweeping anyway, or not really? It was just
never heard of auto sweep until so probably 6 months ago. But no, look, that was sitting there. Of course, we used the credit card on some of the trips and around Australia to get bits and pieces, and then when we went around the world, we used it for some accommodation stuff and that, where you had to book online, and it was just sort of sitting in the background, and we were just paying it off over time. But once really got into the Money Smart system, and then we started to prioritise what we were going to do, and the first thing was, right, let's get rid of this bad debt and cancel it out. So the card was actually with another institution compared to the one that we simplified to.
Yep.
So the first couple of months was around concentrating on that debt and getting rid of it. And then once that was gone, then it was just all straight into the surplus account, and just watching that build over time. And at the same time, every spare moment listening to the podcast to bring myself up to speed. I got to a point, I think it was about 100 episodes in, where I said, right, I've got a fair foundation. I might jump forward and get closer to the end where we're talking current times.
Yep.
And so I did that and listened, I think, probably about 50 episodes at the latter end to bring me up to date, and then started going backwards and forwards. In the middle, I go back to where I left off at episode 100 and listen to a few. Then when you produce the next one that come out, I jump forward and catch up again, and then go back. And so I did that basically right through until I've completely caught up, and then now just hang out for that Friday when I can jump in the car and drive to work and listen to the next one. But over that time, all the little tips and tricks that I picked up sort of put me in a good position then to really dictate terms when it come to getting our first investment property, having the confidence to talk to the bank manager and approach it in a different way compared to other times where I went in there sort of cap in hand asking for money. This time I went in there with the confidence, knowing that I had the collateral backing and could go in there and pretty much demand what I wanted, and knew that they would give it to me. And so it was a lot different, and found it more rewarding and less stressful. So it was really good.
Steve, what I love about this story, right, is that we're going through the basics, and it's not harder than the basics. And that is organise your money, get in control of your money. And in your case, how you got in control of that money is you sorted it out through Money Smarts. It's obviously, as you say, a shockingly easy system. And that's why you went back and checked it a couple of times each month to say, have I caught everything? Is everything in here? And then you've realised that you've got, once you get in control, you've then got opportunity with that money. And I think that's the power, the empowering thing for me around, where that opportunity and potential lives. And you built that confidence story on the back of that visibility. And then, you've built that up also with, your education and the lessons that you've taken away. And you've walked in and you've dictated terms in terms of what you want to see happen for you and your family as you now start to focus on, as you say, that accumulation and retirement planning that you're going to do. So, I mean, the whole idea of the summer series is about this financial transformation story. But you've just taken action, and you haven't. I mean, I want to know. It's probably my next question. I want to know, all of this effort, has it felt like it was, oh my God, if I had to do it again, it's just so draining. So, there's so much that you need to put into it, or has it been a story of actually it's not that hard so long as you build that confidence up?
It definitely hasn't been draining. I've really enjoyed the experience of getting our first investment property, and of course there's areas that I'm not really good at, and those areas I actually brought in experts to help and to make sure that the right decisions were made in certain areas. But certainly in terms of the banking side of it, could go and do it again tomorrow. It was just the way it was so easy. I had the knowledge behind me in terms of the terminology that they like to use to confuse you. And even when I first approached the bank manager and asked for the possibility of borrowing against our current PPR, and he said, I want it kept individual, but just securitized against it, and that's it. But he come back with, well, we can just top up your current loan and give you extra. And I went, no, back it up. That's not what I want. I want it this way. And he went, oh, okay, yep. And so by using the terminology back at him, straight away, he picked up that I knew what I was talking about, knew what I wanted, and pretty much then stopped with the whole trying to upsell and twist terms to suit the bank more than what it needed to be, and appreciated that I knew what I wanted, how I wanted it structured, and worked with me then to achieve what we wanted.
Fabulous, Steve, because their job is to try and entangle you in such a way as it makes it difficult for you to get away. So what you've actually done is create an independent approach to your lending to say, well, at the moment you serve me, but at the point in time when you don't, where I'm ready to go. Hey, can you help people listening to this, Steve? Ben and I say money's simple, behavior is hard. And we've kind of just spent the last little section talking about it is ridiculously simple. Can you give us a before and after snapshot? Because beforehand, you were acting and behaving in such a way, and then you adopted a system that you look back and you were looking for the catch, and then all of a sudden you realized it was pretty simple. Were you surprised at the little that it actually takes to get in control of your money and have that transformation, when prior to that you probably think it's mysterious and probably really sophisticated and all those sorts of things? Can you give us a bit of a before and after, just to help from the point of view of the person listening to this right now who's not in control of their money, wanting to be in the place that you're in?
Yep. So yeah, definitely beforehand, like I said, living for the moment and not having a really robust saving plan was probably our biggest downfall. And because of that, when we did decide we wanted to sell up and move, it was very much a cap in hand approach to the bank, and because you didn't have thousands and thousands of dollars saved ready for a deposit and stuff. You were just going there saying, we're looking at selling and moving on, and we want to use, the proceeds of this house to go towards the next one. And, sometimes it might have been a bridging finance just to secure the land first and then move on. And so that was always a very nerve-wracking experience, knowing that your future was in the hands of the gods, so to speak, in that it was up to the bank to decide whether you could or couldn't do something. Now, a few years down the track, with a little bit more wisdom behind me and a money smart system, which has shown me a way that you can manage your lifestyle and still save but still not scrimp on anything. Going back into that environment and dealing with a financial professional has been a totally different experience, and something that I've actually enjoyed, as opposed to being wary of or being afraid of. And then probably from a more personal scope, the conversations we have now, when I say we, my wife and I have with our kids, has changed. We're a lot more open. My oldest daughter's 19, and she's working part-time while trying to get into uni herself. So what she's doing with her money and the way she invested it, because obviously banks are giving a pretty low return at the moment for savings. So she's looking at other avenues, and actually, off one of your podcasts when you talked about the brick exchange system, and she looked at that and actually put some of her money in that, and the return she's getting from there is better than the interest that banks are paying her on her savings. So little things like that now, and just generally talking with the kids about money and how it's good to save it, but it's good to have it working for you as well, and giving examples on how it could be working for them even at a young age. And our youngest wanted a camp stretcher, and how we got him to get that and earn it, work for it, as opposed to me just going out and buying it for him and going, yep, we're going away next weekend, here's a stretcher. was like, well, no, you don't really need it. So how are you going to actually earn it? And what's the benefit of that, and how you're going to make your money work towards this? And so those conversations have developed over time, probably over the last 4 or 5 months. And I've noticed a big change in the way kids think, and especially just little things like we go down the street and we're walking past a supermarket or a clothes shop or something, and they'll have a look at it and go, oh, geez, that'd be really nice. And then they stop and think and go, all right, well, I can buy it today and borrow money off mum and dad, or I can wait another 2 weeks and I'll have the money to get it myself. And the satisfaction they've got from actually buying it themselves and earning the money themselves, as opposed to going to the bank of mum and dad, has been really satisfying to watch. And you can see them actually doing the calculations when they look at it and go, yeah, I really want it, but, and then they stop and think, and then 2 weeks later they go, oh, can you run us down the shop? I really want to get that jumper I've seen, and now I've got the money to buy it. So it's been really satisfying to see the outcomes of those conversations and the change in their mentality in regards to money and saving and spending.
Oh, well done. You're changing your family tree. I just want to lean in just on the last little bit, just your mindset before being in control of your money and afterwards. Did it feel like a mountain too big to climb? And then now that you're on the other side, you think, oh, geez, I made it a bigger deal than it needed to be. Can you relate to
that? Yeah, sort of. Because when I first started looking at it all, and a bit of a reality check in that, I had bank accounts sitting in different places, and it was like, got to get all this back into control. So for that, probably the most stressful thing, is actually going into the bank saying, I want to shut all these accounts down, and they sort of give you the puppy dog eyes and going, oh, why would you want to do that? And we can offer you this and that. And again, having that confidence to say, no, I want them shut down. That's it. I'm moving on. And then they accept that, and you're off. And so that was a bit of a mountain, getting control of that part of it. But certainly once it was simplified and we started to see immediate benefits of that simplification, the downslope from the other side of that hill was actually like a enjoyable slide. So it was really good.
Yeah.
Well done, Steve. This is great. A couple of things for me, just on that point around closing bank accounts, just for the community's benefit. You can actually do it over the phone. So once they identify you, if you're set up for phone banking, you can also close those accounts. So if you're a person who can potentially be talked around, or you don't want to offend anyone and it's all a bit too confrontational and going face to face when you do get the puppy dog eyes, then just do it over the phone. That's a way in which you can definitely process that a little bit quicker and maybe even more efficiently in some regards. My final question for the technical side of Money Smarts is, how did you go with the 7-day float? Are you a Thursday payer? How does that roll for you in terms of your living and lifestyle spend?
For us, we're Monday allocation. Okay. So so our pays are electronic, and they go in early in the week. So we actually do the transfer into our spending account on a Monday. Yep. Usually do the groceries on a Tuesday, and so the cupboard's full for the next week, and then sort of skate through, and generally by the end of Sunday, got to the point where there might be $50, $60 in that spending account, and but we know everything's covered, and Monday's coming around again, and the next sort of deposit goes in. So we could change it to any day of the week, but we've always sort of worked on that Monday sort of thing, because that's when our pays are going in, and that's the habit we've got. So instead of putting an added pressure or stress on trying to change the day of the week, that we basically topped up that float. It was easier just to let it ride, and we've already got our spending habits in check based on that Monday float. So,
and in a lot of respects, it's actually pretty clever. If you're a known spender on the weekends and you blow all of that, that's potentially when the slippage can happen. Whereas in your case, your weekend comes around and this is what we've got left. So, knowing that you've got until Monday means you've spent most of the essential stuff that you need to spend. So it's the weekend is the play money, but if the play money runs out, we just tap in again on the Monday and go for it again. So I don't think it's a silly idea at all for those people who start to realize that, because we talk about Thursdays, getting the grocery shopping done and getting all of that out of the way, and then obviously having a good float for the weekend's activities. But if your weekend's activities normally blow out, this is a better model. where you're starting earlier in the week, you get all the essential stuff away, and then, you know, your weekends hopefully don't blow out because that's the end of the 7-day float. So it's not a bad idea, Steve.
Yep. Yeah. Well, sort of to help combat that, what we did in the Money Smart system was made a provision for entertainment.
Yes.
So
yep.
So basically we've got a provision there. So when it does come to the weekend, and we want to take the kids 10-pin bowling, or we want to go to the movies, or we want to do whatever else, we don't have to worry about the money being in that weekly float, because we know we've got that provision set up in the system, so we can just transfer that bit of cash across, go out, take the kids bowling, or go out for tea one night. Beautiful. Or do whatever, and we know it has no impact on what we're doing in the scheme of things.
Awesome.
Steve, you're a classic example of the hope that Ben and I have around people being able to use the Money Smart system to get in control of their money. So thanks for being so transparent. My final question for you is along the lines of, okay, so you're now clearly a sophisticated money manager. Well, a fabulous money manager with a simple system, I probably should say. But what's the goal? You've decided that you can trap surplus. You want to buy an investment property. Why bother? What's the point? What are you aiming for? What's the passive income goal that you're chasing?
Yep. So basically, as part of this whole process, Melissa and myself sat down and said, well, what do we want to really achieve, and what is our retirement going to look like? And we're really keen to explore a lot of Australia as we continue on over the next sort of 20 years of work, as well as once we retire, really spend some time doing that. So sort of our plans are incorporating now purchase of a good caravan that we can use, but also one more investment property. And basically our plan of 2 investment properties and our super combined basically sets us up for a really good retirement, where we can maintain that $2,000 passive income and basically just spend that on traveling around Australia and enjoying the latter years of our lives, and not being stressed about where the next check's coming from. So that's the long-term plan, and we've just been lucky. We've started late in life compared to some others, and like I said, we're both in our 40s. So knowing what I know now, if I had known it 20 years ago, it would probably be a whole different ballgame. But we're in a position now where we can do that. The kids are getting older, and their reliance on us, both financially and I suppose morally, is now starting to reduce. So we're now planning full steam ahead for our retirement, and working on getting that set up so we can kick back in 20 years time, put the feet up, and just relax and enjoy life, instead of having to work until I'm 80 or whatever, and then being too late to actually enjoy it. So that's our plan, and that's what we're looking forward to.
Hey, Steve, you're still a beneficiary of the great effort you did in terms of getting into the property market early as well, right? So even though you've gone through that transition of those 4 principal places of residence to end up where you are today, you've also demonstrated that there is an ability to save, and there's a delayed gratification piece in there as well. So don't be too hard on yourself if you're thinking, well, we're only coming in this late, because you've actually done some of the important mindset lifting and that type of work as well. My final question to you is there anything you want to share to the community that we haven't already spoken about in terms of what it is about, the line of sight that you've currently got? You've got a plan to become what you plan to become. So what other messages do you want to leave for the community as part of the summer series?
I suppose the biggest message for me would be, you're never too old to learn, firstly, and always take advice from others. You don't always have to apply that advice, but certainly having a broad spectrum of people in which can give you some advice and detail on certain aspects, and you sort of pick and choose what you're going to use and sort of what you let go by the wayside. And then just that whole don't think it's too late. Try and get in. Try and adjust the way you do things, and the benefits will come your way. So, that'll be the biggest take home from me.
Well said.
Yeah, some really good takeaways. You are the epitome of the summer series, Steve, because in the notes that you gave us, you started implementing at the beginning of 2021, and then we do the shout out for the series that goes the end of 2021, crossover to 2022. So you've found out about it, you've implemented it, you've seen results, and then all of a sudden you put your hands up and said, I want to share that with other people. And that's kind of what we hope that Summer Series does. It triggers people into action, and they can hear from someone like you, because there's so much here in your story that people can learn from. But even just that simple message, it's not too late to start. There is someone who's just heard that, who's been inspired by that, right? Because they've thought that their chance has passed, and you're living proof that that's not the case. So, mate, we're grateful that you've come on. You've been wonderful to chat with. Ben and I have also started to get into a little bit of a rhythm where people come and share their stories. We're really, really fortunate to be at the epicenter of that, but it is a big deal for people to do it, to share and tell us what it was like growing up, and all the conversations you're having with your kids, which you're passing on amazing legacy. So on behalf of everyone here, Steve, we are super, super grateful that you've come on to the Property Couch and swung past this summer and shared your story. So thanks for coming on.
No worries. Thanks for the opportunity. And if my one little story can help change someone else's life, then I think it'll all be worthwhile. So thanks for the opportunity to share.
It's a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure.
All right, Ben, never too late to start. And geez, there was just had his head in the right space, didn't he, Steve?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think with the last couple in our series, Bryce, it really goes to show you that if you can get the confidence, that mindset right, then anything's possible, so long as you put that into action. And that's, my takeaways is we put frameworks in front of people. We put ideas in front of people. We ask them to sort of consider these ideas, consider a money smarts money management system, consider ways in which you can improve, take in what you want to take in. But the more you do take in and the more action you take off that, you just have that compounding effect. And so I'm, forever grateful for Steve's story and also for the rest of our community, because I took a hell of a lot away from that, like in terms of I had the confidence to go in and negotiate on my lending. He probably taught that banker a few tips in terms of how to look after his or she's future clients. Another classic case of, all right, time is starting to run out, so I'm getting on with it. So, from discovering the podcast at the start of last year and taking action throughout the course of 2021 and coming out and reporting back on that. I mean, how many Australians are there out there who would be in the same position as Steve and Melissa in terms of what they were doing and could be the transformation story in 2022. So for me, thank you, Steve, for rounding out what has been a pretty terrific summer series, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. And only 2 investment properties, Ben. Combine that with super, gets their passive income goal they're after, and they're enjoying life along the way. Factored in a caravan, because caravaning is important. So
I took a round the world trip in there as well. Yeah. So they haven't missed out. This hasn't been living on crackers.
Yes. Lifestyle design. So folks, if you've stuck around with us for the whole summer series, here is the agenda. It's very clear. Ben and I are conspiring to get you to organize and manage your money better. We clearly feel like we've got a system that allows you to do that, which is the Money Smart system. So if you want to be a part of that, just go to makemoneysimpleagain.com.au, go and download the free book, which gives you the instruction manual. And then as a process of getting that free book, Ben, we will then give you an opportunity to use the online version of the Money Smart. So, whenever you heard one of our guests talk about graphs and pictures and numbers and all that, that's what they're talking about. It's a platform that we've got that's free to use to go and check it out. So we are conspiring. So if you have a system that you love, great. If you don't have a system and you want to be like our summer series guests and you want to get in control of your money, just go and use ours. It's free. We'd love to certainly help you with that. But I just want to say that at the end of last year's summer series, Ben, I said the shout out was, if you were inspired by what you've just heard, be the guest for next summer series. So I'm about to do it again, Ben. I just want to pull a call to action out there for anyone who's listening to that. They've just listened to the last 10 episodes of our summer series and they've just gone, I want to be that person. I want you to as well, because I will call out at some stage throughout the year and invite you to come and join us and share your story. So if you want to be someone who challenges yourself, has that accountability, and come on and share your story, I super want to encourage you to do that. So Ben, we couldn't, if this is landing for someone, we couldn't be more specifically that we want you to actually get in control of your money in 2022, could we?
No, mate. And look, I look at our 7 grades of financial transformation and well-being, right? So, there are people who may be listening to the summer series who are in a bit of money trouble, right? They're in turmoil or survival. But the majority of the people who would be listening to us thinking about their future would be about building out that financial consciousness and then moving towards financial stability. So if you look at Steve's story, it's about financial stability to financial control. And now he's moving towards financial peace. So got a plan in place and now starting to do that. And now this is a great little segue for me to talk about the platform itself, Bryce, is getting, as you know, it's going to be Money Smarts 2.0. It's really going to be around lifestyle by design. It's going to be rebranded. So I'm letting the community know that there's something coming. It'll be in beta form for our community exclusively. So our community, Bryce, is going to get first look at this new platform. It's going to be also mobile native as well. So you'll be able to download an app. So there's some exciting bits, but there's also some new features in here, Bryce, which we are going to be talking about a lot this year. And those features are all about human behavior and trying to put money into autopilot, but also giving you a look at where your money situation is right now. So, and we're not just talking about how much surplus, we're taking that to the next level. So I'm not going to give more away because we are going to do a launch. It's going to be an exciting launch, but we will be in beta through that launch with our community before the general public of Australia get to know about it. So I think from that point of view, I'm super excited. I will have more to say about this in the next couple of weeks, but it just gives you an idea that if you're thinking about Money Smarts, that's great, but there's going to be some other incredible features that are going to be added as we move towards that lifestyle by design concept. And we also can give you some more insights into your money and your wealth creation opportunities as well. So a lot to be shared there. So I can't wait for getting everyone involved and having a look at this particular application and platform.
If you want to get involved, folks, it is a really, really simple. Go to makemoneysimpleagain.com.au. Go and download the free book. By nature, you will be part of our Money Smarts community from doing that, and we will be able to notify you first. So I cannot encourage you to do that more, folks. And also, whilst you're there, if you know how to organize and manage your money in less than 10 minutes a month, Ben, you've trapped more surplus, you want to find out what to do with it, you can go and get our other book for free by going to thearmchairguide.com.au. We have bought the book, you and I, Ben. So if someone wants a free book, all they need to do is pay for the postage, and we will send you out a free copy of the book so that you can actually know what to do with your trapped surplus money as well. So, mate, I can't believe it's come to an end. I can't believe that the summer series is here and we're done. 2022 is well and truly off. We're into the second month of this year, Ben. And so next week, we're looking forward to really kicking off with a bang.
We've got a property focus next week. We're going to have a look at the outlook for the market, see where the demand and supply lives, and start to give you our forward outlook in terms of where we see the property market in 2022. So can't wait for that next week.
Yeah, well, mate, it'll be awesome. But folks, stick around for that. We're looking forward to bringing you a bit of an update. But mate, a very quick, we'll thank them probably next week, but a very special thank you to all of our summer series guests.
Outstanding.
For coming on. And Steve, you did a terrific job today. We appreciate you coming on, mate. But until next week,
knowledge is empowering, Bryce, but only if you act on it.
See you next week, folks.
Hey guys, Bryce here again. Just want to catch you before you go and let you know, if you're new to our community, there are a lot of episodes to catch up on, but it's really important that you start from the very beginning at episode number 1. Because episode 1 through to 20 share all of the foundational pillars and frameworks that you need to know to get the best out of listening to this podcast. So I'd recommend that you start there, and the little tip is to maybe start on 1.5 speed. Now, for those of you that are time poor and don't have time to go back from the beginning, don't worry, we've got you covered as well, because we've created a binge guide that goes through all of the details and makes it easy for you to read and get up to speed very, very quickly. So if you go to thepropertycouch.com.au/fast track, you will be able to download that binge guide and you will be up to speed in no time. And whilst you're there, I've got a few extra goodies for you, because we have our top 5 frameworks that you'll learn on this podcast, as well as the Make Money Simple Again ebook, which will help you with the foundations of basic money management, so you'll have everything you need to succeed in building your own lifestyle design and getting the best out of this podcast. Now, just a reminder that anything that we cover on this podcast is not considered financial advice. We certainly recommend that you get your unique circumstances looked at by your individual advisor, and everything we talk about is just general in nature. To thepropertycouch.com.au/fast track, and you can go and get all those goodies and catch up right away.